please hit me with Amazing Sword. Just do it. I've got the Cheryl ready. Oh no, don't hit me with Amazing. No. No! 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 Oh! They can knock this out. Don't do it. No, I'm sorry. I lied. I don't want you to do it. Oh, God. Whew. Okay, time to rant about cards, huh, folks? It's a shame that ptcgo just crashed. All right. No, it's if your opponent has a VMAX in play, it does 300. It doesn't have to hit in a V. It just has to be in play. All right, so listen. Let me find this. Let me find the. I honestly could probably go to Tate's Twitter and find the things that I want to rant about because Tate is your profile picture a picture of Lee in a refrigerator? I was right. I can go to Tate's Twitter. I found exactly what I wanted. I scrolled for like 3 seconds. All right, so homie says, okay, I'll show Tate's, yeah, I'll show that first. Okay, so Tate's profile picture is Lee in a fridge. Okay, that's besides the point though. So Steven Lapras said don't play degenerate decks. Like, you know, saying to Matthias, like, that's what you get for playing Decidueye. And he's also the person that said Rapid Strike Malamo. Oh my god, but no, there was something else. There was something else about, I guess it's not on Tate's Twitter. There was something else about Decidueye from somebody. Oh, I remember what it was. I remember what it was. So somebody said that, Decidueye. So Phoebe is not worth playing because 99% of the time it's useless. Okay, true. You started out good there, buddy. That part's true. But then he went on to say that cards like Decidueye and Altaria are just stupid because you have to tech in a card like Phoebe. Now, false. That's where he lost me. I also don't like Phoebe, but for very drastically different reasons than this guy doesn't like Phoebe. I don't like Phoebe because it encourages people to play that card as in, like, a quote easy out instead of diversifying their Pokemon lineup with Pokemon that aren't VMAXs and GXs and stuff, because Decidueye and Altaria could be a way to force non-V, non-GX Pokemon into the format in V and GX decks and have a mixture of decks. Because if you'll remember when tag teams were announced, they said in like the press release or like the video announcing them, whatever it was, like players will have to play a deck combined of, you know, 1 prize Pokemon, 2 prize Pokemon, 3 prize Pokemon to have the right strategies, to not just give up all of your prizes at once. But obviously that's not how it worked out, because tag team and VMAXs are just like too powerful, so you have to play them. So that got me thinking when I saw the guy complain about Phoebe, because I also don't like Phoebe, but not for the same reason. But I will say that game design philosophy did exist for Team Up, which is why I think Team Up was a good set, which is why I liked Sun and Moon through Team Up, because that did exist. If you remember Pika Box, which I know Jenkins and Bakari and Rahul and some other top players played to success. Pika Box was Zapdos, single prize, Jolteon GX, Double prize, and Pika Rom 3 prize. And top players thought that that was the optimal way to play the deck. So their design and goal did actually work out for a single set. No, I do think team up was a good meta. I'll stand by that, because people were still people were punished greatly for playing tag team Pokemon if the opponents knew what to do. But I'm getting off topic there. But yeah, so Phoebe I didn't like the release of, because it gave players a lazy out to teching for Decidueye and Altaria. Because now you can tech Phoebe and it works perfect. We threw in a lazy card with it that has no choices. We just put it in our deck and play it. Or they put Phoebe in their deck, it doesn't work, and then they go on Twitter and cry about it and say even a Phoebe doesn't beat these decks, they're too good. But you're the person playing a deck full of 340 HP monsters, and you're complaining that this thing doing 60 damage to you a turn is the problem. Like, it's very hard for me to agree that, you know, a 110 HP single prize Pokemon that can't be hit by Roblox Pokemon is the issue. Because that just sounds like you don't want to tech for it, so you lost. And I understand that a lot of the community is casual, but when casual players try to be competitive and then get frustrated and then do this, like, they had it coming, because it's just like, okay, I don't know. It's not Pokemon Ranger. It lets your attacks go through effects. All of your VMAX damage goes through effects this turn. So it allows you to hit the Decidueye and Altaria, essentially walls like Hoopa back in Shining Legends was. That's also something that, like, not even, like, no, like, remove the sarcasm. They're complaining about this because of the versus ladder, which has no relevance to anything. Like, they're upset that they hit the Decidueye on the versus ladder and lost. Like, the versus ladder literally matters less than a piece of toilet paper rolling down the street. Like, you know, No, I know you were being sarcastic. So I thought that, like, yeah, never mind. Yeah, no, I got you though, Pat. But yeah. Yeah, like, you knew this was happening going in, right? So, like, Phoebe does offer good things. It does offer good qualities. Like, you have a choice, at least, right? It gives a deck building choice, which is great, because for a while decks were just so like copy pasta and optimized, and like, if you tried doing something differently with your deck, you were just hurting yourself, because decks were pretty much perfect for a little bit because there wasn't a lot to work with. Even though, you know, we had a fair amount of sets, but just like around the Darkness Ablaze Vivid Voltage time, there wasn't too much room for creativity. So at least Phoebe adds to that. you can choose to tech, and like take a deck like Eternatus. It's a deck where you can't tech too much because you can only play dark Pokemon. So Pokemon techs are less applicable to a deck like Eternatus. So at least you can like tech in a Phoebe if you want to make your Decidueye or Altaria matchup winnable. So like tech in Phoebe Sable IV or Phoebe Palpad, etc. New Age players seem to have a hard time understanding that decks take a loss. I think this comes from most recent formats having all decks be the same, just different color. Yeah, that's yeah, you are kind of spitting right now. Yeah, Jake, I think 100%, like Team Up Through Darkness Ablaze and Team Up Through Vivid Voltage, which were both the same format, were the worst experiences I've had in the Pokemon trading card game. In all of my years of playing, that was the worst. And I guess it's like good that it happened while we didn't have events, right? Because I didn't have to play. Like personally, yes, if I wanted to make content, I did have to play, but like most of the community could just take time off from Pokemon because it sucked so bad. But now we're getting into some good stuff, and I'll probably make a video running that down, but basically the things I talked about that would need to happen for the segue into a better format are taking form a bit, that I spoke on in my History of Power Creep video. Basically, I think we're seeing like we're seeing something similar to the Mega EXs and Break era that led into the GXs. Can you explain why it was the worst? Yeah, because games were over in record time, like 5-turn games, 4-turn games, even 3-turn games with ADP Zacian. If you missed an energy attachment, your game was most likely over unless your opponent also missed an energy attachment to make up for it. So with the energy attachment being missed and people realizing that, decks started just throwing 4 Crushing Hammer in for no good reason other than if your opponent misses an energy, your percentages to win just go up. If your opponent either whiffs an energy or you flip heads on Crushing Hammer in Team Up Through Darkness Ablaze and Team Up Through Viv, like your win percentage is through the roof with every energy miss or Crushing Hammer hit. So it was really bad because it wasn't, Crushing Hammer was no longer a crutch that you were leaning on as a bad player or a less experienced player or playing a bad deck to try to beat good decks, and it was no longer a control only card. It was an optimal card to put into your deck in many decks. I don't think it changes too much, but I think Team Up Through Darkness Ablaze was worse just because the Rusted Sword Zacian did scare tag team decks just a wee little bit. Battle Styles was like the Battle Styles was like setting the tone, and Chilling Reign like capitalized on it. Hang on, let's see what Katron said. The Dene GX is also a huge problem. I also don't like Crobat, but it's not as bad, but those cards have made a very toxic format. Yeah, having the Dene plus Crobat, because it does two things, and it's a double-edged sword, just like tag teams are. Real quick, the metaphor I would use for the tag teams is basically like, and it's also how I see using the Dene GX and Crobat. It's like telling a football team they can have 2 extra players, but if the opponent scores 2 touchdowns, that's game. So of course you're going to put in those 2 extra players because that's such a huge advantage. but then the opponent's also going to put in those 2 extra players. So then, regardless of who does it, 2 touchdowns end the game. It's basically like that with tag teams, but also with the Dene GX Crobat, because you will get punished if it doesn't work out playing the Dene, then Crobat, then Dedenne, then Crobat, Dedenne, research, try to hit your combo pieces, or like your optimal turn 1 or whatever. You just went through so much of your deck, threw away resources, put down 2 support Pokemon that are very easy for your opponent to win by knocking out. But if you didn't go for that, you would lose because you didn't go for it, and your opponent is going to go for it. Josh, I'm scoring that touchdown every time. Yeah, Path to the Peak doesn't fix the issue, but I would say it helps. So Path to the Peak isn't necessarily something that hits the Dene and Crobat. I will agree with Katron there. So Path to the Peak doesn't really hit Crobat and Dedenne. It hits the VMAXs with abilities more than anything. No, Gassy, I'll get to you. I'm replying to what Katron said. Yeah, so Path to the Peak doesn't hit the Dedenne Crobat. It hits Shadow Rider and it hits Eternatus. It's like more of like a win con of how Stamp Plant used to be. So Stamp Peak against Shadow Rider against Eternatus, because those decks are so powerful, like power jam-packed into one card type deal. I think it's fair to have a card like that that hits them hard, that your opponent can try to stamp path you and then come back into the game that way. Yeah, and Path to the Peak does hit the Dene bat a little bit versus ADPZ. That's true, because ADPZ is just the dump your hand and hope you hit it kind of deck. So I think it does. Path to the Peak does feel like it hits that a little bit. Yeah, so Patreon, to go along with that, I think based off of what you say, it does hit the Dene Crobat, but strictly in ADPZ, which is good for the game, because ADPZ can play 2 swells, but like I said, ADPZ has to dump their hand no matter what to try to get to their early altar and then their boss kill. And sometimes during that, you're dumping your second swell because you already played the first one. And then your opponent goes Marshadow Path, and you don't have anything left to do. So I do think Path hits ADPZ, specifically ADPZ, the Denes and Crobats. But for the rest of it, it mostly hits passive draw support, which for rule boxes is basically Cricketune. And then it hits Shadow Rider and Eternatus, obviously. That's a fair point. So, yeah, build your deck better. But even then, I think Path to the Peak does something there. Like, it makes people build their deck better so you can punish the bad decks. And I'll take that. You know, I've wanted something. I've wanted something to punish people. Because, like, that's another thing. In TUU versus through Darkness and Viv, I felt like it was all feel-bad moments. Like, there's just so many more feel-bad moments. Like, yeah, somebody's going to lose. Somebody's going to lose in most games when there's not a tie. Yeah, Dede has to go. I did, you know, Dede at its release, Dede felt... It definitely feels worse with Crobat. If Dede felt worse when there was a Crobat added, and I think if there wasn't also research in the format, then it would also not feel like it was so toxic. But being able to draw like 19 cards, Crobat, Dede, research, and that being really realistic too, that's what makes it feel so toxic. But yeah, the Dede does need to go. Oh right, yeah, the Dede was released before research was back in the format, right? Yeah. Yeah, so initially I didn't feel like Dede was as much of a problem, but then you throw in Crobat and research and there's just way too much happening. Yo, Doc Poke, GG's. Good luck to your team next week. Yeah, but when a game lasts 3 to 5 turns, or let's say 5 or 6 turns a game lasts in these formats that we just came out of, and the games are so volatile, and what they're being based off of somebody whiffing energy or whiffing something for just one turn, or crushing hammer flips deciding the entire game, even though the crushing hammer flip happened on turn 1. Like, there's just so many feel bad moments. I didn't even like Shaman EX in 27 NAIC because the Lysander may as well retake 2 prizes. Ultra Prism through Cosmic Eclipse. I don't think I actually played a single game of that format, Tate. Like, in a tournament. True, yeah. I I don't very much like boss's orders, but it seems like we're gonna have to deal with it for a while, so. But yeah, I don't really enjoy boss's orders. I remember feeling like I was the only one that was upset when I found out Guzma was being printed right after we were about to lose Lysander. Like, I was actually excited to lose Lysander and not have a Gust back then. And then I was like, oh, Guzma's coming next. Yeah, Ed, we're gonna touch that for sure. Yeah, controlled control decks are on a clock, like, right from the start. Rotation, the game will be healthier, yes. It won't be perfect. It won't be, I don't think it'll be a format we look back on and say, like, want to play it and stuff, but I think it'll be good. I think it'll be good enough that I'll be excited to play it. I do like the format we're in right now more than the previous one, but it's not hard to like it more than the previous formats we've had. Like, September through April, was just miserable. So, like, it's hard. It's hard to not think. It's hard to not enjoy the game right now because it's just a lot better than it. But it's still not perfect. Yeah, I'll be happy to see tag teams go, even if the game isn't better right away. Just tag teams were disgusting. Losing Stamp, yeah, that makes sense. It would be nice to keep Stamp, maybe. What would I like to transition to? So, I'd like to see, I think the next step would be something like a VMAX that is 2 prizes, has the same HP or almost the same HP as VMAX's, but much less damage output, I think would be a shift back. So worth 2 prizes, has similar HP to VMAX's, but a lot lower damage output. Might be something. I do want to make a video about this, though. I've been thinking about making a video, like, what would it look like? I think V-Unions are... V-Unions are evidence that they aren't going to just creep the game another step further. Because if you guys, for those of you who watched my history of power creep video, you'll know that I think tag teams were the largest spike in power we've ever had, and then that caused VMAXs, if they wanted their new mechanic to be played, by logic had to creep again very quickly. And so I think we'd have to... I lost my thought because I was starting to read the chat. Oh, V-Unions. Yeah, I don't need V-Unions to be long-lived, because I think they're going to be just like Legends. Legends are something we look back at in HGSS era, and like we're fond of it, even though they only lasted for a couple sets. But V-Unions have the design to potentially be good for the game in deck building wise, possibly not in like feels good, feels bad moments of the game. But what newer people don't realize is that Legend cards back in 2011, they were not the focus of decks. They were not your main goal. You know, they were 2 cards that if you put happen chance into them at some point in the game, you could play them down and you could work out their strategy. Most of the time in the late game they were used because it took a while to thin your deck and get to them. And V-Unions have that same kind of feel. A lot of people are looking at V-Unions and saying they're so bad because they think that we want to build our deck around it. Nobody can build their deck around the V-Unions and it be optimal. It's... if they are used, it will be like the Legends were, you know, an addition. And like Jake's saying, the design is great because what I've been preaching, and Stefan Ivanov has mentioned this a lot as well in articles, the problem between the disparity of tag team Pokemon and stage 1s and stage 2s is a tag team takes up 1 spot in your deck. You only need to play 2 of them, and your energies that you're putting onto it are sticking around for a while unless they're hammered, but they're not getting knocked out immediately, so the energies are sticking around for a while. So the time, the turns that you're putting into it, the resources you're putting into it, and the deck space are all so much better than playing a stage 2 that's going to get knocked out right away. But with V-Unions, it's taking up 4 spots in your deck. It's probably taking more than 1 turn to get it set up, and then once it does get set up, you can never use it again. If it gets knocked out, if it gets GG ended, whatever, after it's been on the board 1 time, you cannot bring it back to the board again. So, with all those restrictions in mind, this is what, in my opinion, tag teams should have looked like in some way. Like, even if tag teams were just 2-piece cards like Legends were. Oh, Tate, 100% people are going to be bashing on these things in Burbank, and like if they come out and we have a regional, like there's going to be secret decks for the V-Unions and people are going to day 2 with them. Yeah, I 100% expect that, Tate. I agree with you all the way. And like Katron said, yeah, The legends were 2 pieces, these are 4, but items and draw and discard and everything like that is so amped up now. The game is faster. So Katron, they did create a supporter for them that is very bad. It's the supporter is search your deck for 2 cards and discard them. So it's very bad, but we'll probably get other stuff. Sandaconda VMAX, Greninja, B Union, BDIF, absolutely. Well, let me get back. Edge said something. Birthday Boy said something. Let's see. Oh, he said something about the one deck centralizing the metagame. I don't even know what to say to that. Ban Battle Compressor from Expanded. They need to ban Expanded.